Hi everybody, Chris and PJ here live in the Dream Giveaway Garage.
Hello, Christopher.
You know I have this big smile on my face?
I know why.
You want to tell them, should I?
You go for it.
We were hanging out all day with Big Daddy Don Garlits. And I've got to tell you guys, I've met a lot of celebrities. You remember I was in the rock and roll business when I was younger. And Don Garlits has got to be the most amazing living person that I know, other than PJ, of course.
Of course.
He is just so amazing. And I'll tell you, his stories, well, hey, don't let me just tell you this. We did an interview, it just ended about 20 minutes ago.
That's right. With
Don. He's on his way back to the Museum of Drag Racing. This is a 12-minute video. We're going to play you the whole video. Don will answer those questions that you guys sent in to Kathy earlier today, so thank you. There were 8 people who got their questions in. He answered all 8 of your questions. We'll roll that tape in a minute, but before we do, let me remind you that there are 11 hours and whatever minutes, 10 hours and 50 minutes left for you to enter to win the 1957 Chevy in the 1957 Chevy Dream Giveaway. I was thinking about Don Garlits and he was telling me about his 1950 Ford. So anyway, the 1957 Chevy here. You've got to get your entries by midnight tonight Pacific time. That's 3 a.m. on the East Coast. You go to dreamgiveaway.com, you use the promo code, you get your bonus tickets. Keep getting tickets up until the drawing closes, and in 2 weeks we'll be announcing the winner of this Restomod 350 cubic inch carbureted 5-speed air conditioned fully restored 57 Bel Air.
California car covered.
And yeah, that's right, it comes with a California car cover, super weave.
Chris, when Don was in here, did he even look at the 57 Chevy? Did he even
Don is a Dodge man through and through. Chevys don't do it for him, but Dodges certainly do. And so Don and Lori were out, and Don was driving the 840 horsepower Demon. And Don really likes that 840 horsepower Demon. That's not a big surprise. I'm sure that we're going to have video for you over the next couple of months of Don having a little bit of fun in that Demon. But for now, we got Don Garlits. Big Daddy Don Garlits is going to answer the questions that you submitted. And with that, I'm going to ask PJ.
But before we do that, right after the video, though, he talks about something that's pretty unique about his career, and then we're going to run that film too.
So we'll run that film too. We have some vintage video of Don Garlits, and this is crazy what you see happening in the video. Let's roll them, PJ. Enjoy, guys. We'll see you in 12 minutes. Watch the video. We're live in the Dream Giveaway Garage with Big Daddy Don Garlits, 17-time world champion drag racer. There's nobody bigger in drag racing in the entire history of the sport. Mr. Garlits.
Pleasure to be here. I love these cars here in the garage.
71?
Yeah. I wouldn't turn any one of them down.
Great. So happy to have you here. You were out with the Demon today, having fun, and we have questions.
I see them.
From our audience. They'd like to ask you, so I'm going to start with this one. At night, when you're dreaming, when you're asleep, do you dream about drag racing?
Almost every night, believe it or not. And mostly it's in the pits, working on the car. I've always at some big race, and I've either set top time or something, and I need these parts, and we're not getting the car together in time. There's only so much time to get up there, and then usually I wake up, before I ever get to do it. But once in a while I make a run, but not very often. It's mostly in the pits.
All right, that question is from David. Our next one. After your vision of placing the motor behind you, just how challenging was it to accomplish it? And what was your first run like with it in the rear of the car?
Well, it was very challenging to start with. I'd seen rear engine cars. They've been around forever. They weren't effective. They were hard to drive. And of course, the minute I started building it, I started getting phone calls from Goodyear and Chrysler and my friends that not to do it, that it was going to crash. But I saw the cars at Indianapolis, and they were going around the circle over 200 miles an hour rear engine in traffic. Why couldn't we just go straight for a quarter of a mile? But when I got to the track for the first run, everything was fine. It left the line nice, and the vision was so good. And then just zap, it turned right off the drag strip. And fortunately, I was over at the Bithlow drag strip in Orlando, and the guardrails were 100 feet from the edge of the track. You couldn't make the runs today on these present tracks with that big barrier right on the edge of the track. I'd have crashed a couple of times and that'd have been it. But for 3 months, I struggled with that car running off the drag strip till I finally figured out the darn steering was too fast. And I had to slow the steering down. But in racing back in those days, all the cars had fast steering. Even these new cars got real fast steering. And it just seemed like the way to go. But a rear engine car has to have real slow steering. And once I figured that out, everything was good.
Rob, thank you for that question. Next one, any advice for a new driver in the sport?
My advice to a new driver?
Yes.
Don't try to start at the top. Come up the ranks in the slower cars and really get the feel of everything so that each time you make an incremental increase, you don't hardly notice it. See, my first ride was in a 50 Ford. It went 19 seconds, and it just incrementally went up. So I never really noticed it. I was going, over 200 miles an hour, and it didn't seem like anything. It's a little tough to decide to just be a top fuel driver to start with.
All right. Louis, thank you for that. And now, Big Daddy, what was your favorite decade of racing that you have raced in?
I'm going to have to say the 80s, because I was supposed to have been retired, and I'd moved my museum to Ocala, and I hadn't raced in 2 or 3 years. And my friend Art Malone come up to the museum, and he said, let's go to the 84 Indy. And I said, well, Art, I don't have a car. He said, sure you do. Just get one of your old cars. I'll put a new motor in it. So we took Tromprat 26, which was built in 1980, put a new motor in it, went to Indy, won the race. He said, let's go to the finals. So we went to the finals. We won the race. He said, let's get some sponsors. You ain't got any business being retired. So we won the 85, 86 World Championships and set the world record, first car over 270 miles an hour. And it was a great year, a great decade for me.
Good. Mike, thank you for that question. And from Troy, how young were you when you had your first race? And did you know then that this would become your passion?
No, it's 1949. I just got my first car. I was 17 years old. And this kid pulled up beside me on Florida Avenue and said, let's race. And I said, what do you mean? He said, when the light turns green, step on it. And so we did. And he had a brand new Chevrolet, and my 40 Ford was pretty wore out, and it just shot right out in front of me. But it was so exciting. I loved it. But I didn't have any idea it was going to be a racer, because I was taking accounting. My mom wanted me to be a CPA, and that's what I have. I have a degree in accounting, which has been caused me to be successful, because I know about bottom lines and expenses and spending more than you make. And so accounting's been real good to me, but racing was my love.
All right. And from Jonathan, and I'm going to chime in on this. You're 92 years old. You look 20 years younger. What kind of food do you eat to live so good and so long?
Stay away from fast food. I try to eat lots of fresh fruits and vegetables, cook a lot of stuff at home so you know exactly what you're using to cook with, and don't eat too much. Try to limit your work and stay real active. If you work like a horse, you can eat like a horse, but most people don't, so you got to really watch your intake. Drink lots of water. That's one of the keys. And keep your mind active too, because if your mind goes stale, that's the computer's running the whole body, see? And so that's got to be as sharp as the rest of them. In other words, if you tied an arm up for a while, it would just wither away. Well, if you don't use your brain, it'll wither away too. And you get dementia and Parkinson and all these different diseases. So everything depends on being active, keeping mentally active, physically active, and eating good food.
All right, great advice. And from Roger, one of our great Facebook fans, what is a ride that was perfect? And he doesn't mean the fastest, but he means the perfect ride.
It was the last qualifying run at Ontario, California in 1975. I went into that race 400 points down. I had to win the race, and I had to set low ET and top time and go out of that race with both of them being world records. And on this run, I had already set the speed record. I mean, I had the backups for both speed and ET, and 249 and 5.71. And the car left the line, and the front wheels come up about 6 inches, and I'm looking straight at them. The front wheels never turned, and they just stayed up about 6 inches. And I got clear out to the 8th mile, and they were still up about 6 inches. And I was hoping they'd come down, because I was afraid when I hit the shift button, it would go up. But the engine was around 9,000, and I had to shift. It was no matter what. And I hit the button, and the wheels come down on the strip at about 230 miles an hour, and 2 little whiffs of smoke come off each wheel like it was a Piper Cub landing. And it shot through the lights at 250.69 in 5.63 seconds. The ET was so good that the 571 didn't back it up, but I backed it up the next day in the race, and I went out of the race with the win and both world records, and was the 1975 world champion. And that was the perfect run. I've been faster, 323 miles an hour, but that run will always remain in my mind, because every moment of it I can remember it, because it was so vivid with those wheels up and that car just charging.
Wow. Wow. One more question. How did it feel when your rail stood up and pivoted backwards, still spinning the tires?
Well, that was a bad day at Black Rock for me. That was a really wonderful car. We repaired it and went on to win the championship, but what had happened, that car was balanced perfect and had a big fuel tank in the very front. And nitro is 9 pounds per gallon. And I must have exactly the right amount of fuel when I leave the line. Then after I get out there a ways, as the fuel's consumed, the wind would come over that special nose piece and hold it down. And there was a tiny little drip in one of the nozzles, and the NHRA held me while the crew chief tried to fix it. It wouldn't have meant nothing. And 2 gallons of fuel more was consumed than should have been, because I was ready to go. So that took 18 to 20 pounds off the front of my car. And it went out there with the wheels just up like on this other run. But in this particular case, the way my car was built was all flat underneath for streamlining. And at about, say, 150 miles an hour, it just rode right up on that cushion of air and blew over backwards. But when it got up like this, as it went to spin around, it blew it down. And so it come down on the wheels going backwards at over 200 miles an hour. And I had no parachute, because it wouldn't have made any difference anyway, because I'm going the wrong way. So I thought the engine was still running, so I stepped on the gas, and it was still in low gear because I hadn't shifted. And it spun the tires like this going backwards and stopped it much faster than it would have stopped even with a brake. And of course there's all this smoke, you know. And then the motor revved up because it was out of fuel now, because the way it was, all the fuel sloshing around. And so the motor revved up and it shot out of the smoke screen, and the NHRA said, "Oh my God, he's unconscious and it's a runaway dragster headed to the starting line. Mayday, mayday." So the crash truck come out on the track, and it's coming at me. It's real fast. And I knew what they were thinking, that, you know, that I was unconscious probably. And so I real quickly turned the car off the drag strip, to let them know that I was under control, because they would have hurt me real bad driving up on the car, you know.
Wow. Wow. How do you beat that story, ladies and gentlemen? Mr. Garlits, we will be giving away this car at your museum in November at the
that's
show.
Great. I'll be happy to give the keys to somebody.
And
some lucky guy or girl.
That's right, and you can be the winner. Remember, Don Garlits proudly supports the Dream Giveaway Sweepstakes. You can see him live on this video and with many of our Mopar grand prizes. We will see you next time with more great fun, more great action, and what a great experience. One of the most amazing men on earth, Mr. Big Daddy Don Garlits. Thank you so much.
Always a pleasure, Chris.
Thank you. That was amazing. Let's give a big round of applause for Big Daddy Don Garlits live here in the Dream Giveaway Garage.
I don't think people realize it was literally
today.
25 minutes ago. It was just here.
That's right. This afternoon, we just wrapped that tape up and then had to download the video to insert it into the live that we're doing now. What an amazing man, and wow.
Let's take a look at that accident, though.
Let's take a look at that accident that he's talking about, 200 miles per hour. Watch how he recovers.
New technology could go. During qualifying, he established a new national speed record of 271 miles per hour and ran the all-time quickest elapsed time of 5.34 seconds. There was, however, a dark side to Garlits' performance. On his last qualifying attempt of the weekend, Swamp Rat 30 left the line with the front wheels off the ground. Air got under the car and pushed the front end up until Garlits' Streamliner was literally standing on end.
Wow. I wouldn't like to try that, PJ.
No, neither would I.
There you go. But to Big Daddy Don Garlits, nothing is impossible. What an amazing, amazing man. So honored to have him here today in the Dream Giveaway Garage. Back to the 57, everybody. You've got about 12 hours left to get your entries. Be sure to get those entries at dreamgiveaway.com. Thank you, everybody, again, who put those questions out there for Mr. Garlits to answer. I know we couldn't get to a couple of them, but we will be seeing Don Garlits later this year when we give away that 1971 Dodge Demon 340 at Don Garlits Museum of Drag Racing in Florida. So we will try to get some more seat time and question time with Don Garlits. And PJ?
Roger says, I love the bonus content broadcasts.
Yeah,
I appreciate that too.
Happy to do it. Roger, one of Roger's questions was answered there. Thank you, and to everybody who got those questions in. We're going to wrap it up for today. What a fantastic day with Big Daddy Don Garlits, big supporter of the Dream Giveaway program. And we will see you guys tomorrow with more great fun, more great action, and more great grand prizes. This is your last chance to get your entries for the 57 Chevy. We'll see you tomorrow in our